Luis, you're still waking up.
No, I'm not.
Okay, very good. Okay, well, the recording has started. Go ahead, Pedro.
Yeah, thank you so much all for being here. And I mean, I put it everyone as optional instead of and not Job because Job has the final call on everything that we're doing. But so yeah, I added some points to the agenda, which is linked from the event, and also a link to the Google Slides where I summarize some of the.
I don't see a link, Pedro, in the
event.
Yeah, or maybe I can see it on my app.
Maybe that's that. Okay, so let me put that in the chat. So this is the agenda.
All right, thanks.
And this is the slides. Let me know if you can.
Yeah, I got it. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. So let me share my screen. Yeah, so it's a very basic presentation about the survey results and the comments. There are some really interesting and also some funny comments that have been made. So the first thing to take in mind is that the survey results should be taken lightly, right? So most of the people, we are assuming that they're not brand experts, and at the same time they don't have the necessary context to understand how the brand directions and those little small logos in black and white would be applied within the product and in all of the different mediums that the brand will be shown. I think we also should be data informed but strategy driven, right? Because the choices being made here are made in isolation, and the people that run remote.com should own that decision and know what the strategy is. But I think this was a good exercise to understand what the community thinks and what they're most what appeals to them the most. And I think the comments are really an interesting source for that, more than the votes. I think the comments were really, really good and interesting. And also the best direction may actually disrupt with the popular opinion, right? So if we can be in the middle and try to please everyone, which will give basically a meh result for everyone. It's good, but it's not bad. But we can also be disruptive and choose the completely opposite thing of what people voted, because we actually want to disrupt with what people feel remote is today. So far, questions? We're good?
Good.
Cool. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so just some light stats to get an overview of who were the respondents for the survey. So we had a lot of job seekers and talent, some companies and recruiters, a bit of both, then other did not answer, but the vast majority were job seekers. Most of the people already have an account at remote.com. And some of them don't have an account at remote.com. And we have to be aware that maybe this can, the fact that already have a remote.com account can, they might be biased towards the current visual style and aesthetic of the current brand. Also, a lot of engineers or people from engineering, the vast majority. Again, this can skew the results and can also inform the direction and the strategy of the company or the brand, right? Because if we're having a lot of engineers and people from engineering answering to this survey and speaking generically and without any numbers, we can more or less assume that the vast majority of remote workers or people interested in remote work are from engineering. And this is something to consider. Then the other categories are more or less the same. Nothing really interesting. Vast majority young people, right? From 25 to 34 years old. A lot of people from the US, Portugal, United Kingdom, Netherlands. I have a feeling why we have those people from the Netherlands.
I wouldn't know.
And yeah, we had some many other countries, which I then joined at the end. Then, which gender identity most identify? We have a lot of people that identify themselves as male, much less as female, which again can affect the outcome of the survey and what people thought was more, maybe more masculine or more feminine. And we can, at the end of this brief presentation, you can see the distribution of the votes of what people thought was the best logo for each kind of gender identity. So we presented these logos. Which of these logos best represents our mission and appeals to you the most? So the first one, I gave names to each one of them, so it was easier to then analyze the data. So the first one I called face, because it kind of reminds me of a face. And once you've seen it, you can't unsee it. And then it has, I know Marcel, he has a really, or he or she has a really big nose, but you have to be,
Looks like a parrot.
or looks like a
one-eyed parrot.
Oh,
a
yeah.
one-eyed parrot. That can also be, yeah. That was one of the comments, but yeah. It's a bit Picasso, I guess. Then the mention is the one in the middle, and then the final one, the wireless. So face, mention, and wireless. So let's see the results. This is what we got. So there is a winner, which is wireless, but it's not a clear winner, right? To be honest, I thought I was expecting to have a clear winner, like one of the options that had 60%, 80% of the votes, but that didn't happen. So it was, yeah, there isn't a clear winner, and we can't for sure say that mention, although it was the least voted one, is not necessarily the worst option, or that face cannot be the best option, and so on. So far, comments, questions?
No, comment. I'm surprised. I thought the wireless is the weakest logo. So.
But I'm not. It's because of the amount of engineers we have in the survey.
Engineers, why would they prefer that one?
We'll see, Marcel. We'll see if it's only the engineers. Yeah. Luis, Eduardo, anything to say?
No.
Okay, cool. So, okay, positives first for the face comments. So these, so I tried to gather the comments that I thought were more prevalent, so that were repeated by many people, but also the comments that were more unique, but that actually had something more different to say about the logo. So people said that this one looks more formal and someone who is here to educate us about remote. And this can also be affected by the color, right? This is all black and white, and all of these logos can come across as more formal than if they had color. The dot is a nice analogy with the .com when using the symbol alone, which is interesting. Clean and fresh, since remote is a new and innovative thing, feels like a fresh, new start for a prestigious brand. Looks like it could be a person or a bird, right? The parrot, and that's in line with your theme. The symbol is minimal and unique. The enclosing circle also subtly represents the global remote nature of the company. I'm glad someone got that. The most modern looking of the three. Since you're focused on defining a modern way of working, I felt that a modern logo was necessary, right? So it's interesting what people felt about this logo. And we also have to take in mind how this aligns with what we've agreed is the design persona of remote.com and the strategy for the company and the brand. Negatives. The symbol may be a bit too fancy, right? This goes hand in hand with the fact that maybe it's modern, but it's also very minimal, right? And people tend to associate minimal and modern things to maybe more fancy. But again, this can be worked with color and so on. And people are seeing this in isolation from the rest. of the brand. Typography doesn't look okay, looks clunky. It's not clear that the symbol is a lowercase r, again, because people might see this as a person, but also as a bird or a parrot. But that's also interesting, like it's open up for interpretation, and that's also good not to be very literal. Symbol looks like a head. I found this was really funny. Symbol looks like a head on a chopping block, or a human with poor posture.
Yeah, can't unsee now, huh?
Exactly. So yeah, so it's
I'm sure
it's
that
like,
was a French person saying that.
Yeah.
yeah. This reminded me of Game of Thrones as well. Yeah, the first episodes. Spoiler. So yeah, then mention comments, positives. Symbol is simple but clever, quirky, and unique. It reminds me of the symbol from Twitter, Slack, HipChat, email, etc., which are ways that folks who work remotely have to connect with each other. Feels more friendly and approachable, more like there's a human behind it, which is probably a major concern about remote working. Symbol could become the universal sign of remote working. Typography is simple and clear. Then the negatives. Symbol appears to be in a very raw state. It has more potential. Symbol looks like a human, like a man, like sitting, like
Oh my God.
sitting on his knees, but the long tail connection weird. I found this was really funny. And so I really like that the R and the @ symbol are swapped, but I think it's a little confusing at first glance. It looks like something from the past when we have to use the @ and the Wi-Fi symbol, which is for the wireless logo, to say it's internet related. Seems too limiting compared to the vision. It was creative, but hard to see as a modern brand. Those symbols are overused and outdated, generic and unrecognizable. So this wasn't just one comment from one person. It was me just combining different comments into what I felt was just one single message. Symbol looks too handwriting focused, which can be related to the fact that people feel like it's more human than the others, which is a difficult balance. Symbol has too much baggage with the similarity to the @ symbol, and some people don't get the @ but with an R. Positives for the wireless. Typography looks nice with smiling E's.
Yeah, it's like the Heineken logo, which famously also has smiling E's, which instead of having the space in the E be horizontal, it's slightly slanted upwards, so it makes like the E's are smiling.
Yeah, exactly. So the Wi-Fi symbol represents remote connectivity better than the other logos. It shows that you do not need to be tied to a desk to do your work. Symbol blends better in the logo than the other two. Then the negatives, typography could be less bold and is better in the other logos. Then the same comment, which I already read from the mention about being something from the past, outdated and generic. People said that it's not memorable and looks a bit childish, again, because maybe it's a bit too rounded for what people's tastes. And looks like a satellite radio company, an RSS reader app launching in 2008, a new wireless standard, or an e-commerce shop for remote-controlled gadgets. All true. All true. It could be exactly that.
Yeah.
So let me see. Yeah, this is by user type. So far, any comments, questions? Anything that popped up that you want to?
Well, I mean, everything that people have mentioned about seeing other things, I can never unsee.
Yeah, we're broken.
I think it's a really good distribution of comments. Like they make very good comments about what the problems are with the various logos and word types and even the typography. So no, this is great. It's very interesting.
Yeah. So now distribution. So by user type, we see I mean, the distributions aren't very telling. You could see that like here, a lot of more companies prefer the wireless than job seekers, but this one isn't very representative. Then by account ownership, interesting fact is that people that own an account at remote.com were more likely to prefer the wireless logo than people that don't have. And I'm not sure if this has to do with if people are not really that connected to remote work, so they don't see the wireless logo as remote work and prefer others like the face. So there could be a lot of interpretations here, but I found it was just interesting, this difference. Then by job category. So Marcelo, here you see that it's not just engineers that prefer wireless, but actually it's more the engineers, right? It's more the engineers and also finance folks. And another interesting thing is that the face, which is the more abstract and minimal logo, is preferred by people from design or business management. And the mention, which is the more human and more handwritten kind of logo, is much preferred by writing folks.
That's very funny. That's like that really stands out.
Yeah. By age, interesting that people, as they get older, tend to prefer a more literal approach. So the wireless logo tends to win in the long run. And you can see that the face, the more abstract and minimal one, kind of does this arch where people that are younger prefer that kind of logo more than the others.
I think it's important to note here that we had very little data for people that are in older age groups, right? Above.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah, here I decided to use this visualization so it's easier to compare across the different answers. But if you look in the back, you can see that there's very little data compared to this one, right? And the same for the rest. Yeah, by gender identity, I thought there would be a bigger difference between male, female, and others, but there's not so much of a difference. And then for transgender male, if I'm not mistaken, and gender neutral, there was only one answer for each. That's why this is at 100%.
I'm not surprised at all by this. I don't think there's such big differences in what people prefer gender-wise.
And then wrapping up. So conclusions. The face logo was taken as minimal and modern, yet more formal and fancy than the others. This can change with color, as I said, and maybe some work there. And it was interesting that people said that, okay, the dot can point to the .com when it's alone. Okay. And then the face, both face and mention, people associated the circle with the subtlety of representing global remote nature. The mention logo, the at association needs to be less literal, but has the potential to become the universal sign of remote work. And the wireless, we can all say that it's basically too literal and generic, right? It can be a satellite company or a new wireless standard or RSS reader app. Sorry. And so these were kind of the conclusions of what I found here. And in terms of recommendations, I can say that focusing only on the symbols and not so much on the typography, because that can be worked separately from the symbols. I think that the face one, which is the more minimal and abstract, if we want to resonate with a younger and more tech audience, that would be my recommendation. The mention one, I think it resonates if we want to be more human and disruptive. And both, so what people said about face being too, let me back this up. So what people said about this one being too formal and maybe modern and minimal, it can also be worked so that it's a bit more human. And the same goes for this one. Sometimes people felt that this is human, which could also go against what people were hoping to see, which was a modern and more disruptive brand. This can also be worked to be more minimal. So basically, one can approach the other's style. And yeah, this was more or less what I put together for you. And now I want you to talk and comment on what you found here.
I always go first, so not today. Marcelo, you go first.
So I really think that if we were to address the three different logos, I think that especially the wireless one is a very comfortable choice for people. It's very similar to what they know. It's sort of techie-ish, so it can be easily associated with the website. And I think this comes from a very I don't know, a more comfortable place in a way. I don't like it. It doesn't. It reminds me of everything rather than what we're doing here and what we're about.
Mm-hmm.
Regarding the face, I don't have strong feelings regarding towards it. Let me just get Pico to stop because he's being a dog. I don't have a lot of strong feelings towards the face. It doesn't especially talk to me about remote. What I like more about the sort of with an R in it is that it does really define a symbol for remote working, which can be easily reproduced and added everywhere if you want to symbolize that you're working remotely or posting a job for remote work. I still think that considering the amount of engineers that we have in the pool and the distribution, I still think that it completely biased the result towards the Wi-Fi. Well, at least in a very big portion of it. And that's not just our entire goal, right? I mean, remote should, in principle, appeal to everyone. Also, the reason why we have a lot of people from engineering is because 3 out of 4 founders of remote.com right now are engineers, and we share a lot. And because also Job and yourself work with a lot of engineers in the past, so that also influences the results. I don't think it's bold enough, the wireless, so that we could even consider it. I don't think that it speaks to what we do or to what we are. And regarding the other two, maybe we could iterate a bit and turn the ad into something a bit closer to like the glow mentioned and the face. I don't know. Something in between these two could be the ideal. I don't know. That's it.
Yeah, I think.
Sorry.
Yeah, let me just say that I agree with the engineering, but we also have to bear in mind that, I mean, people, of course, they selected the wireless one by far, but it's not to say that we should go after this kind of approach, but we should, of course, bear in mind that most of the audience will be engineering. But at the same time, we have to balance that with
not necessarily.
Yeah, not necessarily, because one of the things that I talked with Job about was, and you can confirm this, Job, is that remote.com also wants to become a really important place for inclusivity and diversity in remote work. So that also means we cannot alienate. Thank you. People from other job categories and so on. We have to be more diverse. So this is just to say that I agree with you, Marcelo, and I think that this one, the mention, can be reworked to be a bit more minimalistic, maybe a bit less handwritten, and less literal about replacing the @ symbol with the R, and then just basically replacing the A that would be inside of here with, and still paying homage to the mention sign and to the @ sign that we use in all of these apps, but not be that much in your face. That's what we're doing, right? Go ahead, Yo.
Thanks, Pedro. Yeah, I think the wireless one, I never liked it. I still don't like it. And the fact that some people like it doesn't change my opinion about that. I think the comments were very good, actually. I think that the first logo, the face one, I think it's too clean and too distant from what we are. Like, it doesn't seem to connect very much with our brand, other than it just being pretty, like it is pretty. Yes. And I think what some people suggested, and what you just suggested, Pedro, as well, where the @ logo is maybe made more clean, or more. I've in my eyes that would be ideal. I don't know. I wouldn't know how. That's the challenge for you, Pedro. But I do think that it's very recognizable today. And if we can get it to a point where it's just a little bit more clean, like I think it really is too much handwriting now. It could be a very, very, very strong logo, and it's very recognizable. Whereas the first one, the face, I don't think it's very recognizable, right? Like it seems like a generic startup logo, which is both good, it's clean and modern, but it's also bad in the sense that it's not very recognizable. Also, I can't get the idea of the person whose head is going to get chopped off now out of my head. So, like, it's just the only thing I see now. It's completely ruined.
But I mean, with this one, you can also see like the person on their knees with a long tail, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We're so not going to do another questionnaire like this with the next iteration. But so I think when we were studying this process, my thought was that is the strongest one, like identity wise, and I still stand by that. I do think it needs to be cleaned up significantly, like made a little bit more simple, like maybe make it easier to draw or something. Like there's a lot of complexity now, a lot of lines, different kind of corners, different kind of angle. But it is just very, very strong as a symbolic type. And I think it's nice that at least one person or maybe more people said that they didn't understand that link, which makes it nice because then you can just explain that, right? Like where someone said, here, don't get the at but with an R in the bottom. Like that's a nice thing because we get to explain something, because once you understand it, it's like, oh yeah, it's kind of smart, or maybe they all think it's stupid, but nonetheless, I think it's smart. I think, it's very interesting to get these comments, and I think that, if we make it a little bit more abstract, like make it a little bit less at and a little bit more remote, like the link might be more subtle, but the logo will still be very recognizable. That's just all I had to say. Eduardo, Luis?
Maybe I can go. So I definitely agree with the wireless. I don't really like it. No obvious reason. I think it doesn't stand out that much. Seems pretty obvious. With the other ones, I think the mention one can be relatable. So maybe a bit too obvious, but it can be relatable. You can, for instance, you can do something playful like looking for jobs at remote.com, and that can be like a logo or something like that, or you can put it on a t-shirt, something like that, some material. And I think that's pretty cool. But I think I like the face better because it's a bit more abstract, and I don't think a logo really needs to be so related to what you're trying to represent. So too much literal. So I kind of liked it that it was more abstract in that way. But if you can iterate on dimension to make it more abstract, maybe that can work also. I just think that at some point we might be really tied down to the persona, so to say. I'm not sure if that makes sense, but I like it abstract.
What do you mean too tied to the persona? Do you think
maybe too literal, or maybe too literal? I don't know. Most of the logos that I see today don't really make sense to me at the first glance, and these kind of make too much sense. I don't know if that makes any sense, what I'm trying to say, but
you mean the dimension one?
Dimension one.
Okay. I see what you're saying. I think it goes back to what you said in the beginning, that it's too, like, the meaning is there, but it's too literal, and maybe making it a bit more abstract, closer to this one, can still retain some of the meaning, some of the link to the design persona, but without being too much in your face.
Right? Yeah, I think that's pretty much sums up. But yeah, that's just an opinion.
Yeah, no, that's great. All opinions are valid. Yeah. Luis, you want to say something about this?
Yeah, basically you already said it all, but I agree that the wireless one, I don't like it too. The one that I like the most is the face one, and I agree with Eduard that the logo doesn't necessarily need to be literally like represent the brand or the thing that you're trying to do. I think the face one is more modern, I think. But I will go to be the safest choice will be like the mention one.
Yeah. So one thing I want to say is that yeah, thank you for your comments. I want to say is that the like this was a good exercise, and we should it does, as I said in the beginning, it doesn't mean that we're going to decide the logo just because people voted more on the wireless and so on. It's just to inform the process and to inform our decision and to understand what are the blind spots, but also where are the opportunities for differentiation. And we should be like, when we are, I mean, we're not going to do another survey, right? As Job said, and it wasn't planned for us to do either. From here on, it's just going to be an internal decision and work. But we should be respectful about people's opinions, and when we are like finally communicating, oh, this is where we're going with the brand, or this is what our new brand, we should basically communicate that we took their opinions in a very respectful way, and we took them and valued them. But it doesn't mean that we're going to follow blindly what they said, right? And I think that would actually be a disservice to the time that they spent responding to the survey. Job, when you tweeted that the survey would take 1 minute, on average, I think it took 6 or 8 minutes.
Oh, it's good that you can see that. That's interesting.
Yeah, it took, I think, 6 or 8 minutes on average for people to fill in. But this is just to say that yeah, people are not the experts, and if we ask people directly what they want, people don't know what they want, right? We have to read in between the lines and between what they're saying to really understand what could resonate the most or not. And at the end of the day, the decision is, I can be here guiding you and advising you on what I think could be the best, but you make the final decision, right? I always use the mechanic metaphor for this, right? When I go to a mechanic, I don't understand anything about cars or fixing cars. I really don't. I mean, a lot of people do, but I don't. And so when I go there and he says, oh, you have to fix, like, the car needs this fixed, this and that. And I asked him, okay, what's the bare minimum that we can do today? Okay, so you should replace the tires for sure. And you should replace that, but if you don't replace it, you're on your own. It's on your own risk, but that's what I recommend. And sometimes you accept what they say and you go with the car, and maybe it breaks down like some time after, or you do everything that they're saying. So it's basically, that's the way I like to look at things. I'm here to help you, but you make the final decision, taking all the information into account. Yeah, that's basically it. That's what I wanted to say. So any more comments or questions, or
what are the next steps?
So next steps will be to, again, basically iterate on making, I think, the mention one a bit less literal, to be a bit more minimal, and see how that could work. And if I feel like it's not working extremely well, maybe another approach could be to look more into the face one. But I think that's basically the last case scenario. I think the best approach right now is to take the mention and basically try to make it a bit less handwritten, a bit less literal, a bit more minimal, and that can also work in more mediums, because the thing is that it has so many curves right now. And again, this was just a concept, right? It was just to test it out. But right now it has so many details and so many curves that I also think being so literal, it can actually be more difficult to read. So when people look at it, they kind of, oh, is this an @ sign? or not, or it's just weird design. But if you make it your own thing and it's less literal and more unique and different from that, it can be even more simpler and not necessarily easier for people to understand, but to recognize as, okay, this is the symbol of remote.com, whatever it may be. And people can see that it's an @ sign or a mention, or at least inspired by that, not a literal thing.
Yeah, I think one thing that always stands out to me is that you should be able to make an icon out of it, and it shouldn't be easy to confuse with other logos or the @ sign. I think if you would make an icon out of this one, it would be easy to confuse with
Exactly.
a particular font that has an @ sign. So that's maybe like a good goal, that we get to a point where it is not confusable with an @ sign, yet it is still, it still refers back to it in some way.
Yeah. And so my idea now is that, so that we don't bias everyone, is to keep the now I'm going to open up the initial design direction issue that is currently confidential, and put some of the notes and also the slides there. I wasn't intending on sharing the whole data with the public, like all of the comments and everything, but I mean it's anonymous, but
no, we shouldn't do it because we didn't ask people for permission to do that. So
yeah,
like answers are fine, like population data is fine, which is actually anonymous, but like what people have written is not public information. And I'm sure most people will say they don't care, but they haven't actually given us explicit permission.
Exactly.
So we should just not do it. We should just respect them for in that sense. And also, I think your summary in these slides, this call is recorded, so I'll publish this. I think that's sufficient.
Yeah, I tried to keep it as not generic, but as broad as possible without being very specific as to who said what. It's still anonymous, but as you said, we didn't ask for permission. So I'm not going to put that. I'm just going to publish the slides. And yeah, hopefully that's enough. So I'm going to open that issue. And then the final design direction one, which is currently open to public, I'll make it confidential so that I can start adding things there and discussing things with you there. And my to during this week try to wrap this up essentially, or at least make a first iteration for you to comment on. And I'm aiming for a maximum of like 3 iterations so that we don't do this forever, because we can keep iterating on a logo and fixing this and fixing that. But yeah, at least the first iteration to have a more minimal approach to dimension design ready this week for you guys to look.
Yeah, can I just add something really quick?
Of course.
I was looking and I think we need to be careful because the @ mention might be confused with the registered trademark symbol, which is a bit similar.
That's right. Yeah, that's a very good point. So when I was sketching out some ideas, one of the possibilities was, instead of using lowercase r with that like more handwritten approach, was to use capital uppercase R, like the standard one. And when I was drawing it, it was exactly like, I didn't see the registered sign at first, but then, this can be easily mistaken by that. So by using this less common approach of drawing an R with that lowercase design, I think it can be a bit more different from the registered sign. And also, I think the visual treatment and the colors can really set it apart as well, because as I said, I really like to work first in black and white, because that's where you really see if basically the logo works or not. If you try to add color and other effects and other applications, it's just more difficult to focus on what really is what you're communicating. But yeah, that's a really good point, Eduardo. Thank you for making that. Yeah, I agree. Cool. That's all for me. I don't know if there's anything else you'd like to talk about.
No, cool. We're working hard on the new remote. So It will be good.
When is it coming out?
I don't know. Maybe
When it's ready.
Yeah, when it's ready is basically the answer. I hope to be done in a month. That we release something in May.
What will be new? Will it be just also the public website?
Everything. Yeah.
All the things.
Every single thing about the remote will be new. So both full backend infrastructure, entire front end, entire UI, all the UX, everything, every bit, it will be different. Yeah. So yeah, it will be. It's exciting. We're rebuilding. We're throwing away a lot of features, but we're adding a lot of new ones. We'll have much better search. It will be much faster. It will be prettier. It will be fancier, more blinky. It will be better in every aspect.
So I had one question for you, Job. The illustrations that you're using in the blog.
Yeah.
Who is drawing them?
They're free. They come from undraw.co. Yeah, they're vectors. Actually, we do a trick. So we have both a vector and a PNG, which we both upload. So that if you switch to dark mode, it still looks pretty. So you don't need to use transparent PNGs because we don't have.
Yeah. So I saw the source in the repository.
Yeah, it renders very fast because it's SVG. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and it uses fancy static site. We use Gatsby. That's really fast.
So you're putting together basically different bits of illustrations, or do the illustrations already come as is?
No, they come as is. They just have 1,000 different ones. Yeah, the only thing you can change is the color, and you can download both a PNG and an SVG. So we download both and we just drop them in. So it's zero effort. It's really great. It's
what's the name?
Undraw. Unsplashed, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just the equivalent for SVG. Yeah.
Undraw.
Louis shared the link in the chat.
Amazing. Didn't know
Okay,
about this.
I'm going to stop the recording and then you can see June. Wait, hold on. Stopping recording.